Bore da pawb. Good morning everybody. Croeso. Welcome to my Wild Welsh Garden. Well, do you know, it's the most fabulous morning here at the top of the Swansea Valley. The sun is shining and it's really quite warm. Just look at that blue, blue sky. But clear skies in the day mean very cold nights, and this morning the garden was covered in frost. The snowdrops had all drooped. And the primroses. And the crocuses in the lawn. But then as soon as the sun touches it, the frost melts and everything comes back to life again. This end of the tiny forest is in the sunshine now, and all the forget-me-nots that I've planted out are looking lovely and green. And this end is still in the shade, and the forget-me-nots are still frozen. You see, there were crocuses in the lawn all the time. I thought that there weren't any, but there were. I did see a honeybee on the crocuses, but I can't really get very excited about honeybees because they're farmed bees. They're not wild bees, and it's the wild ones that are in decline and need our help. That one actually is a dronefly. That's not a bee, that's a big hoverfly. So he's woken up from his winter sleep and is glad of a crocus to feed on. And there's another dronefly, looking very sleepy, very slow and sleepy. And a hoverfly looking very sleepy. I haven't seen a wild bee yet. I haven't seen a bumblebee. The Pyrrhus flowers are just beginning to come out, which is a little bit worrying because this was frosted this morning. And last year I lost a lot of the flowers to frost. So I'm just hoping not too much damage has been done. And now it's 11's time and I'm sitting by the pond having my coffee, and this is the time of day and the sort of weather when I was sitting here and all the frogs came to the surface of the pond and started croaking. And you know, there's no sign of any frogs at the moment, and I haven't seen one or heard one, and I don't think there's any more frog spawn, so I think they might have gone. So I think that might be it for this year. All those male frogs have gone off to look for some lady frogs in another pond somewhere. You can see the hibernaculum quite clearly now in a way that you can't during the summer because it's covered in foliage. But you can see the two entrances here with the pipes that go down, and then there's two entrances the other side as well. I wonder if any of the frogs that were in my pond spent the winter in here. I've just seen this lovely queen bumblebee in the greenhouse. She's got a white tail, but I think they're all called buff-tailed bumblebees. I think I better rescue her, hadn't I? Put her out in the garden. Oh dear, she's very cross. She didn't want to be caught in a jam jar at all, but there she is. And Doesn't want to go now. And there she goes. Yes, well, it's official now. Last year was the worst year for bumblebees on record, according to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. So the bees that you're starting to see now are quite big, and they're the queen bees that have hibernated from last year. And their job is to establish a colony, and they will lay eggs, and those eggs will turn into little grubs. And to begin with, it's the queen that feeds them because there's only her. But then those grubs will hatch out into little tiny worker bees. And then the queen will stay in the nest, and the worker bees start doing all the pollen and nectar gathering. And I think that's what went wrong last year. I think the weather was so bad that the emerging queens just never got a chance to establish colonies. And now I've found another bee in the greenhouse. I think this time it's a tree bee because it has the white tail, but it has a brown thorax. So I think I better rescue her as well. Oh no, she's found her own way out. So I think the garden has reached a kind of tipping point now where it's time to start thinking about sort of tidying and pruning things back. In fact, one of my lovely followers asked me for advice really about when to start pruning back the winter plants that she'd left for the wildlife, particularly ones that had started to sprout. And I think probably this is the time to be doing that. So like here on this little climbing rose, there's lots of little new shoots appearing. I actually started a couple of days ago with this clematis, and I forget all the different classes that there are, but this is the one that you cut right down every year. And you can see that there's quite big sprouts here that had started growing. So I cut that down. That was scrambling up the quince tree. And I just left it all winter. But I thought, now's the time for it to go. And there it is on the ground, and I'll take that over and put it in the dead hedge, so the habitat won't be lost. So what we gardeners are trying to do is to play the part of the keystone species in a natural environment. And when we do pruning and cutting back and that sort of thing, we're doing the job of the large herbivores. And I was remembering the workshop that I went to at NEP, where the point was made was that large herbivores don't eat everything at once. They sort of move through an area, and they, eat a little bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of the other, and they come back another day and eat some more, and then maybe another day and eat the rest. So I suppose what I'm saying is that we don't have to clear everything at once. So for example, this geranium, I don't need to clear that until the new growth has started appearing. And there doesn't seem to be any sign yet. And then I noticed that there were some tiny snowdrops and some primula wanda coming up underneath. So I've actually cleared it all away. And at this end of the bed, some more tiny snowdrops and some more primula wanda that were hiding under the leaves. So I've cleared the leaves away, just so I can enjoy the flowers on my way to the shed. And the leaves I've thrown just to the back of the border over there, and I've put the dead stems on the bug snug. And then I've also cut back the autumn raspberries. There's a row along here. And I've got the pile here of the stems that I've cut off. And you can see the little green sprouts going all the way up the stems. And another of my lovely followers suggested that I put these vertically somewhere, like along a fence, and that there are certain bees that would like to make their homes in there and lay their eggs. So that's why they're all in a pile there while I think about where I can put them. And then I've been pruning roses. That's the one on the side of the shed. So all round the garden there are piles of rose prunings. So I'll be taking all these over the road and putting them on the dead hedge. And sprouts have appeared on the honeysuckles on the trellis. But I'm not going to cut these back because these are still growing. And I was looking at these little lavender bushes down by the back door to my cottage, and do you know, I think they've had it. This one has an aubrietia growing through it, but there's not an awful lot of lavender that's left alive, I don't think. These little shrubs don't last that long, and these have been in, must be 5 or 6 years, so I think they've done very well. And the thing is, lavender is so good for the insects. You know, the bees love it and the butterflies love it. And, you know, I come out here and count pollinators. So I think I shall go and buy some more. Of course, if I was organised and I'd thought ahead, I would have taken cuttings and got new little plants to replace these with. But I didn't, and I'm not, so I haven't. So I shall have to get myself some more. I can't remember where I bought these from, but you can buy them all sorts of different places, even the local supermarket. But I don't think that's a very good idea because you don't know if they've been treated with some horrible insecticide, and that won't do the bees any good. So I'll probably look for a reputable nursery and order some. I've been sitting in the summer house having my lunch, and I was hoping that either some birds would come and have a bath or some insects would come and visit the crocuses that are all open and following the sun round. Well, a bee did come, but she was much too quick for me. But earlier this morning I saw this small tortoiseshell butterfly that's obviously woken up from its winter sleep, looking very bedraggled. And then a little flock of long-tailed tits arrived, and they visited the feeders and they hopped around in the trees and just looked ever so cute. And now the afternoon is advancing, so I'm back in the summer house. You can see the shadows lengthening on the lawn there. So I've been pottering about in the garden. I've been planting some plants and moving some plants and selectively grazing, as they call it in NEP, but basically weeding the little willow herb, because I let it flower last year, and yes, I am regretting it, I have to say, because an awful lot of the seedlings have come up. So I've been being a herbivore with a taste for the seedlings of the little willow herb and just pulling them out. That's the end of another thrilling episode of my Wild Welsh Garden and my wildlife adventures. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next video. But it's nearly wine o'clock, so I'm going to have a glass of wine and sit and watch the sunset and just be with the wildlife.